Miss me? I miss y'all too. And truthfully, I'm so sorry it took so long. Ah, but that's in the past. Let's keep the past in the past. I'm back now. And I have been doing so much reading and watching. And you know what that means. I have so much to tell you about. This week, I want to tell you about some of the romances from the 1990s. Now, I don't know about you, but millennials like myself, by and large, idolize the 90s. The music, the fashion, the aesthetics, all of it. Now, being black in the 90s looked so special, like, looked so cool. So the romances from that time stick out even more so, at least to me. So I thought, you know what, let me come back. Let me tell y'all about some of the romances from that time. Now, some of this you probably know, and some of it maybe not so much, but either way, let's get started. Quote, Shantae's got a man at home and he's been good to me. I remember that song from the late 1990s, and that was around the time I was entering middle school. Now, I didn't pay that close attention to the lyrics, though the chorus was very catchy. Going back, it's a very na boo boo type of song where Chante is low key shaming another woman for being with an abuser. Now, I didn't know that then as a preteen, nor did I know that when that song actually came out. Shantae was actually married to Kadeem Hardison, the man we all know as Dwayne Wayne from A Different World. Now, that song was her biggest hit, and that was around 1999. But Shantae at that time had actually been in the industry for over a decade. Also, then, Shantae and Kadeem had been together for about 6 years. They met in 1993 at a party where Shantae said she, quote, didn't want to leave his side. Months later, they connected again at the NAACP Image Awards as they were about to announce an award together. Before they spoke to the press that night, Kadeem said he would tell them that they were getting married. Shantae also mentioned how he grabbed her hand and, quote, didn't let it go the whole night. So that's how their whirlwind romance began. But they were honestly very private about it. Like, despite being seen together and listed in these top couple lists by Ebony magazine, they kept their relationship to themselves. So much so that when magazines were reporting that they were pregnant and engaged, they were more than likely actually already married. On November 17th, 1997, Kadeem and Chante got married. Now, at that point, they had a 1 year old daughter named Sophia Milan. And we only know that they got married on that date and that their wedding actually took place because of their divorce that actually took place in 2000. The media was largely unaware of their marriage beforehand, which was a perk of being a celebrity in the 90s versus today, where someone would have more than likely spotted them at brunch or, taken a picture of them on their cell phone and then uploaded it. And then one of those Instagram news accounts would have seen it and ran with it. Jet Magazine said that their marriage was reminiscent of Janet Jackson's marriage to Renee Elizondo, because that was another one that we barely knew about when it actually took place. Now, if you remember the television show R&B Divas, you might remember that years after their divorce, Shantae would interact with Kadeem in a way that some thought was very flirty. And some people just really can't process that, like, exes can actually be cordial or even friendly with each other and not want each other back. But, folks saw that and just assumed, like, oh, they're going to get back together. Shantae quickly let folks know that though she'll always have a very special place in her heart for him, they would never, ever, ever get back together. So after their marriage ended, Shantae actually got married twice more. Once to singer Kenny Lattimore in 2002, and then to media executive Stephen Hill in 2022. Kadeem, however, never remarried. Now, I know y'all remember the time Halle Berry was married to David Justice. Now, I do because I was in elementary school when that happened, and their relationship made for recess gossip. I'm sure we were just regurgitating something that an adult said in front of us, but when I read up on their love story earlier this year, and you might remember this, I learned what was true versus what was really just a rumor. So, Hallie and David actually met in the early 1990s. After seeing him on TV, Hallie wanted to get to know who this guy was. Not long after that, David's friend interviewed Hallie and mentioned David wanted an autograph. She was like, I'll do you one better, and actually passed along her phone number to give to him instead. So, of course, the friend does. And so David calls Hallie up and they end up on the phone for hours. David eventually flew Hallie out to Atlanta so he could take her out and get to know her a little bit better. David said, then, quote, I knew when I first saw her that I was going to marry her. They were both extremely sprung with each other, as the kids used to say back then. So much so that Halle proposed to David. Yes, you heard that right. Yes, Halle Berry proposed to David Justice. Now, for what it's worth, he said, quote, I knew I was going to marry her. I wanted to propose on a special date. I was shooting for her birthday, but before I could surprise her, she surprised me. So, a few months later, on New Year's Day, 1993, David and Hallie got married in his living room around 1:30 a.m. They were both at the time in their mid-20s. Hallie wore this sparkly white sequin halter mini dress with a train attached, and David wore a black tuxedo. Their moms were both in the wedding too. Quote, Judy Berry was the maid of honor, and David's mother, Nettie Justice, was the best woman. They honeymooned in the Caribbean, and then upon return, seemed instantly thrust into the limelight as a power couple. Magazines like Ebony and Jet were eager to get a profile of their newest favorite couple. Hallie told Ebony that a month into their marriage, she was just as in love with him as the day she married him. They quickly were being positioned as this perfect Hollywood couple. But the reality was that their careers actually came first. They clearly had a mismatch in priorities. David was mostly in Atlanta, and Hallie was mostly in Los Angeles. She told People magazine, quote, I watch him on television every night and see how he's playing. However, the long distance marriage would eventually disintegrate. So, sometime in early 1996, so a little more than 3 years after they had been married, David and Hallie announced that they were getting a divorce. David said, quote, it's something that's kind of been brewing for a while. Any marriage is tough, but we were pretty much bi-coastal and we didn't get a chance to spend a lot of time together. I think our feelings kind of changed. So, that same media that clamored them as the it couple was also used as a tool in their divorce. We learned that Hallie filed in California first, and a few weeks later, David filed in Georgia. And by the summer of 1996, news dropped that David was suing Hallie for alimony. He said, quote, I figured since she wants to take all of my money, I should turn around and do the same to her. Now, David wanted to control the narrative in the divorce and went to Ebony Men with an exclusive interview. He said, quote, every time you look up, she's giving interviews on our relationship, trying to make me out to be the bad guy while she's constantly making herself look like this fallen angel. He went on to say, quote, if she's such a great person, why does everybody walk out of her life? Whew. what a nasty statement. Meanwhile, Halle talked to Ebony magazine several times. She said that David accused her of cheating on him and that he would show up, quote, unannounced, and demanded she let him in order to pick up his things. And if she didn't, quote, he would break every one of the windows. So she filed a restraining order the next day. It was probably around this time that the rumors that he was an abuser surfaced, because that's what I remember hearing when I was a child. She held on to hope that despite all of this, they would one day get back together. Quote, I'll be lying if I said there weren't times when I didn't hope that David would wake up and say, let me go get my wife back. But she'd realize that wouldn't happen. So that actually sent her to a dark place. Overcome with the hurt from the fact that her marriage was ending and really there was nothing she could do about it, Halle sat in the garage in her car with her dog, thought about ending it all until she had this thought, quote, I had an image of my mother finding me. She admitted she didn't really want to unalive herself, but instead, quote, end the pain. The divorce would drag on for over a year, and by the summer of 1997, their marriage was officially over. Now, how the divorce ended and who got what and all of that, child, we don't know. But what I do know is that both of them would not be done with marriage and they would actually get married again, obviously, but not to each other. Rodney Peete, then a quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles, met a young actress named Holly Robinson at a nightclub. Now, mutual friends told them to meet each other, so it was a blind date. Holly, knowing that Rodney was an athlete, took this date as a joke. She was so unserious that she ordered a basket of fries, like multiple, I believe, and was just eating these fries and ketchup the whole time. Now, football players, got bad reps when it came to relationships, and Holly, who was on this network sitcom, did not want the headache of what could come from a relationship to someone like that. But Rodney, on the other hand, was smitten, okay? He knew that she wasn't taking this seriously, but he still made an effort to get to know her and just to have an enjoyable evening overall. Now, despite her hesitance, she said, quote, there was something about him that I was drawn to. They each saw each other again at a barbecue and got a chance to know each other a little bit better there, and the rest was history, as the kids say. Now, by 1994, Rodney knew he wanted to propose. He concocted this plan to propose to Holly while she was at work on the Hanging with Mr. Cooper set. By getting her coworkers involved, Holly was led to believe that they were wrapping a final scene where Mark Curry would walk through the door. But instead of Mark walking through the door, Rodney came through instead and asked her to marry him in front of everybody. And of course, she said yes. So then, less than a year later, on June 10th, 1995, Rodney and Holly got married. They recited their vows at the home of the former CEO of CBS, Les Moonves. Reverend Jesse Jackson was their officiant. Their wedding party consisted of 7 bridesmaids, including En Vogue singer Terry Ellis, and 7 groomsmen. Raven Simone was their flower girl, and E.J. Johnson was their ring bearer. Both of her parents walked her down the aisle. I like that touch. Holly wore a beautiful long sleeve wedding gown with a scoop neck. Jet magazine described it as made of, quote, white silk satin and pleated tulle designed exclusively for her and decorated with hand-beaded pearls and aurora boreal Austrian crystals. A lot of Hollywood's finest attended this wedding, including Patti LaBelle, LeVar Burton, Debbie Allen, Norm Nixon, Willie Gault, Al Cowlings, Magic and Cookie Johnson, Suzanne DePaz, Blair Underwood, Jimmy Jam, Karen Parsons, and of course, Mark Curry. Overall, they had like 300 guests at this wedding, so it was huge. And I know y'all want to know, what did the good people eat? Well, they had a buffet of Southern foods. As for the honeymoon, they spent time as newlyweds in Europe. In their 29 years of marriage, they had 4 children, renewed their vows not just once, but twice, and that was to commemorate their 10th and 17th year anniversaries. They have also been heavily involved in different philanthropic endeavors, and more specifically around autism and Parkinson's disease. Did you know any of this? Also, in the early 1990s, a pair of coworkers became friends, and then some. Now, one of my absolute favorites, a young Malcolm-Jamal Warner, met Michelle Thomas on the set of The Cosby Show. Now, if you remember then, she played Theo's girlfriend, Justine. By an edition of Jet magazine in 1994, they had been friends for a decade and dated for about half that time. And I believe they might have broken up about a year or two or so later, but at some point they did break up, but they remained friends, especially when Michelle was dealing with stomach cancer. I read that in August of 1997, she was diagnosed with the terminal illness after concluding her role on Family Matters as Steve's girlfriend, Myra, but after she started a role on The Young and the Restless. As her journey in this life was coming to an end and she was transitioning in December 1998, Malcolm flew to the hospital, and once he got there, apparently he was like basically in the hospital bed with her, and he was holding her, and she whispered to him elephant juice, which was their inside joke to each other, because like basically when you mouth it or like whisper it, it kind of sounds like I love you, or it looks like I love you, which, have you ever noticed olive juice? Yeah. Anyway, after she passed away, Malcolm was still very impacted by her presence in his life. The relationship he established with her family also seemed to have remained years later, because actually in, I think, like 2017, when it came out that he was expecting his first child, Essence reported on the story, but actually said the news came from Michelle's mom. While we don't know much about their relationship overall, as it was very common with Black celebrities during that time to just like be very private about theirs, we do know that they had a very, very special bond, and it was one that people do remember fondly. Do you remember this? Quote, Left Eye burned down her boyfriend's house. I heard some form of that sentence as it was repeated over and over and over again on the radio, as I rode with my mom in her Honda wherever she needed to go, at daycare, as other kids there were way more plugged into pop culture than I was at the age of 7, and on TV as it became a joke and a punchline embedded into the scripts of various sitcoms and just news shows and anything that could really use a random talking point. Like then, it was such a cartoonish scene to picture. Like, why would the lady from TLC with the black stuff under her eye burn down her boyfriend's house? Because I'll be honest with you, I had no idea who Andre Rison was. At that point, he was approaching his last season with my Atlanta Falcons, but back then they weren't my Atlanta Falcons because I was like 7 and I didn't care about football. So afterwards, he became the guy who dated Left Eye and the guy who let Left Eye burn his house down. But as an adult, I completely see their relationship differently. One of smoldering passion, to say the least. It all began, though, back in March of 1993. Andre was celebrating his birthday at Diamonds, which later became Club 112. He met Lisa through an artist he was producing. He told Sister to Sister magazine that then he was, quote, looking for a more sophisticated woman. Lisa, as most probably remember, was frequently in oversized clothes that almost swallowed her tiny frame. Now, despite that, Andre was interested, but Lisa didn't really appear to be. Months later, they saw each other again at Club 112. Jamal told her to come by the house if her travel plans changed. And so then she just went to his house and never left. Yeah, she basically just moved in. They went together, and going together is when the tumult of their relationship began. So, according to Jet magazine in 1993, Andre and Lisa were having a fight. Two men tried breaking it up, and Andre fired his gun. So, he got arrested. Now, weeks later, Lisa faced charges over trying to make her drink outside of the Georgia Dome. But none of those moments topped what would be the event that basically defined their relationship in the media and in the minds of thousands, probably millions across the world. On June 8th, 1994, both Andre and Lisa went out. Not together, but Lisa made it home before he did. Andre got back home way later, 5 a.m. Paper Magazine wrote that by the time he came home, she was likely drunk and pissed that he bought himself some shoes and didn't get her a pair too. So then once he got home, they started to get into a fight. Andre hit her, then allegedly Lisa hit him, and not wanting to deal with all this, I suppose, he left. Now Lisa did not. She let her anger stir some more. And so she either took the shoes or the box of shoes came in or cardboard or something, threw it in the tub, and lit it on fire. Now that wasn't enough though. She went into the garage or the driveway or wherever the cars were and smashed up two of his cars that were parked there. Now, I used to work in Alpharetta many years ago, which is where they were living at the time. Alpharetta, as long as I can remember, has always been a place where affluent people reside, mostly white people. And I can just think of all the very coded or really not so coded language that was probably used when this happened, especially of those that lived in that neighborhood. But anyway, so the result of this was that Lisa was charged with felony arson and had a $75,000 bail. She instantly became a joke around the country, and while most assumed this would be the permanent end to their relationship between Andre and her, it would not be actually. Weeks later, Andre told People magazine since that moment, he's, quote, cried a lot. He also said, quote, I can't say that I've shed one tear for the house. I can replace a house, but I can't replace the life I had for a certain girl. And he wouldn't have to, because later, Andre and Lisa not only would rekindle their relationship, but I suppose sometime in that period, Andre proposed to Lisa. I mean, maybe Lisa proposed to Andre, but either way, they were engaged. So by the time she pled guilty the following January, Jet magazine wrote that she was Andre's fiance. In interviews, they wanted to rewrite the narrative around their relationship. They continued to be seen together, whereas other couples might have hidden their relationship afterwards. When Andre turned 30 after winning the Super Bowl in 1997, Lisa was by his side at his birthday party. And in August 2000, photographer Chris Cafaro shot them in one of my favorite photo shoots of all time. And one day I will recreate this. And by summer 2001, the news came out that they were engaged again, or still, and their wedding would take place on July 6th. But it actually never came to be. So the following April, during a trip to the Honduras, Lisa lost control of the car she was driving and crashed, sustaining a head injury that claimed her life. Now, I remember this vividly as a ninth grader because this happened 8 months to the day after Aaliyah died. But what I didn't know was that Lisa and Andre were actually still engaged at that time. So when many opined in memory of her, Andre was watching this all play out, finding some of the comments very interesting because he felt like he was the one that knew her the most and the best. He told Jamie Foster Brown of Sister to Sister magazine that he would never find another like Lisa again, which I believe held true, though ironically, Andre would end up marrying a woman named Lisa Lopes years later. I swear, the 1990s were definitely a time, weren't they? Now, this was truly before Instagram gossip accounts and celebrity relationships being on full display all the time. Back then, relationships were low key, they were private. And for the most part, these couples prioritized putting their careers front and center more so than their love lives. But y'all tell me what you think. And just so y'all know, the new season of I'll Tell You What does premiere this month. And, come back for another stroll down memory lane. See y'all in the pews.